All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first boot camp session. We'll see a lot. Well, you guys will be seeing us a lot during these next 6 weeks. And we'll get into all of this today. But maybe we'll just start off by going over today's agenda and then a little bit more. And yeah. So this is today's agenda. There's not too much going to be doing today. We're going to talk about boot camp, what that structure is, and then we're going to get into some actual topics and things that we can start learning and applying to our coding skills. So some of these things are going to be, today we'll be learning HTML and CSS, and then we'll be kind of going over the project. We'll go over the project as a whole, and then kind of what the this week's milestone is. But yeah, so we'll start off with intro. So my name's Cole. I'm a fourth year software engineering major, and this year I'm going to be the director of engineering. Last year I was a tech lead. That was for the Hospice of Slow team. And the year before that, I was a developer for Slow Botanical Gardens. Some things about me is I like going to concerts, playing soccer, and gambling. I didn't know I left that on there, honestly. But gambling is fun, but that doesn't mean I would recommend it.
My name is Vance. I'm a third year software engineering major with a music minor, and I'm one of the associate directors of engineering this year, as well as being part of Hack for Impact's National Engineering Committee. And a little bit about me, some of my hobbies include marching band, baking, hiking, and a fourth one, board games. Yeah.
All right, what's up everyone? My name is Ben. I'm a second year computer science major. So last year was actually my first year in the club. So I just recently went through boot camp, what you guys are doing right now. I'm the associate director of engineering this year, like Vance. And then a little bit about me. I'm from Colorado, so I like being outside, hiking, backpacking, camping, stuff like that. I like going to concerts, gaming as well. I'm looking forward to boot camp with y'all.
Awesome. Oh, that's the wrong one. So intro to boot camp. That's what are we going to be doing in these next 5 weeks? We'll start off with, I don't even think it's on a slide, but talking a little bit about boot camp history. I think this was said during the general meeting, but the first time we held boot camp, it was only a day long. That wasn't long enough. The next time we held it, the following year, I think that was 2018, that was a weekend thing, not long enough. Last year we put it into 5 weeks, so a 5-week boot camp. And it still feels rushed. Learning new topics is always going to be challenging. You know how sometimes in your classes you have a quarter to learn stuff, and by the time you get to the end, you feel like there's still more to learn, and it went by pretty fast. That's going to be a lot how boot camp feels. It's going to feel a lot like that, and yeah, we're going to be going through this boot camp for the next 5 weeks.
Yeah. So why are we doing boot camp? So as you all have probably already learned, Hack for Impact makes websites for nonprofits. So in winter and spring, you'll be working on a team that works with a nonprofit and you'll be building a website for them. However, this quarter is where you get to learn all the skills that allow you to start making those websites. So each of you will be attending boot camp, and you'll also be working on your own individual project that will allow you to kind of learn the skills needed to contribute effectively to your team. Some reasons why we're doing this is that building a website, first of all, is just a great skill to have as a software engineer or CS or whatever your major is. And it's something that's easily achievable on your own. So you don't need a big, massive team to make your own website. Another great reason is that it's a great skill for internships. My internship last year, 10% of the skills I learned in class, 90% of them I learned in this club. It's really good if you want to get into full stack development or web development. And we'll explain more about what all that means later. And then finally, Hack for Impact is all about software for social good. If you're able to contribute to Hack for Impact more effectively, then the charities that we're working with will also be able to help their customers more effectively.
I'll also add one thing about the whole software for social good. We throw that around a lot, but it is something that's a genuine, important thing. I know I had, during my last internship, I was working at this company and I was just kind of building something for the business. And maybe what I did made them some money, but at the same time, nobody saw it It didn't like make me feel good for anything. It didn't really benefit any people than like benefit anybody other than like the business. And so I feel like there is something to software for social good. And that's something that as all of us in here, CS, SE, and any other majors, that's something that we can take upon ourselves and make the world a better place.
So bootcamp schedule, as we already said, bootcamp's going to be Monday and Thursday from 6 to 7. And the first couple weeks we're going to be doing Mondays and Thursdays, and then we're going to have a couple like general meetings and holidays and stuff. So it gets a bit more spread out near the end. But for these first couple weeks, expect to be here every Monday and Thursday. And a bit about what each bootcamp topic's about. Today we're going to be going HTML and CSS. That's kind of like the foundations of how you make a website. After that, we'll be doing intro to Git and do a bit more of CSS. Git is like a collaborative tool that allows you to work with other people and kind of make code collaboratively. Then we'll go over JavaScript, which is a programming language used for web development. We'll go into React, which is like HTML and CSS, but better. We'll go into databases, and we'll explain a lot more about what all those last things mean later. But yeah, there's a lot of content in these weeks, but you'll have a lot of different experiences both inside of this lecture/workshop time and during the project to learn all of these skills.
Sweet. So what is the project? And we'll actually go ahead and show the second milestone. The first milestone is what you guys will all do this week. The second milestone will look a little bit different, but it'll be essentially the same thing, just with more features. So we're going to be building a cooking website, and we'll show we'll get into the like requirements and like how to actually like know what to do later in this presentation. But for now, we're just going to be a quick overview of what we'll be building. I think this will be in the next 2 weeks. So we're going to have our homepage. It's not too fancy, but there's going to be some recipes that you can show off. You can actually click on all these things and learn more about them. You'll have a navigation page. We'll incorporate JavaScript in some places. And we'll also build in like About Me page where we can just learn a little bit more about you and get to know you better as part of the club while you guys are all learning the skills needed as well. I know that was pretty fast, but this is just kind of like a sneak peek of what you guys will be building something similar to in the upcoming weeks. And yeah, without further ado, what's next? I actually don't know what's next. The milestone schedule.
Yeah, I can cover this. So the project that you're going to be working on outside of bootcamp is split into 5 milestones. I don't know exactly when those deadlines fall, but they're going to align pretty closely with the workshops that we're holding for bootcamp. So expect milestones to be like 1 or 2 weeks spread apart. But yeah, we'll just be building a website from scratch, and this is like an individual assignment. So you'll each get a chance to have by the end of this, you'll each have your own individual site that you can put on your resume, and that will give you like the proper skills required to work on a team.
Sweet. So I know this is a bit like out of order. We don't even really know what the milestones and like what the requirements are going to be yet, but it's always good to have some options for help. And so what if you get stuck when we're building the project? We'll go over a little bit about how you can get help. So office hours, we're going to hold some directly after all of the bootcamp sessions. So those bootcamp sessions will typically go from 6:10 to 7. And then directly after that is kind of some work time / office hours. You are not required to stay, but if you have questions or you want to get some help with your actual project, that's a great time that we'll all be available to help out. There's also lots of resources on Notion. We haven't went over what Notion is yet, but we will in a bit. And I get that this is a lot at the moment, but by the time we're done with this presentation, a lot of this stuff will make sense. And then hopefully you guys are all on Slack. Have you guys all seen like the Slack, I guess, and you guys are all on it? Is anybody not on it? Okay, sweet. So there is a CP Bootcamp help channel, and that's going to be where we want everybody to like post, questions they might have. You might say, oh, I can't get this navigation to quite work right. You might post that Maybe one of you knows the answer to that question, you can do it. Or if not, we'll also all be available to answer questions. You know how like in all of your classes, the teachers always say, oh yeah, here's this discussion forum, and then nobody uses the discussion forum. That's what we want that to be, and it is actually a very helpful resource. And then the three of us will all be available on Slack. If there's something you want to share, maybe you don't feel comfortable saying it in front of everybody on the Bootcamp help channel, you can DM one of us and we'll be able to address that. And then the internet. The internet is probably the greatest resource out there. We all know that. There's tons of good resources. We linked a bunch of good resources as well once we get to the requirements. But there's always just more. You guys are all software engineers. You know how the internet works. And then physical mail and messenger pigeons. What that means is nothing. But what we wanted that to like imply is that we really do care to help all of you. And we do want you all to learn a lot from this experience. So however works best for all of you to reach out for help, that works for us as well.
All right, so
Before we get started with HTML, any questions about anything we've covered so far? I know it's a lot of information.
all right,
Cool.
looks good. Okay, so we're gonna hop into some actual content now. So a little bit first about kind of how these bootcamp meetings are gonna be structured. So we'll talk about a little bit conceptually about each topic first. So I'll be talking about HTML for a minute, and then we'll go over kind of a demonstration, do a demo in front of you all so you can kind of see how to actually do it practically, watch us kind of walk through it with you. So first, a little bit of HTML. So what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's essentially the foundation, the base layer for every website you've ever been on. So anything you see in the browser, that's going to be HTML, whether it's text, images, URLs, things like that. All that's built in HTML. So we're teaching you HTML because, as I explained, it's kind of the foundation for everything. It's where everyone starts for web development, and it's the industry standard as well. So if anyone's interested in full stack web development for the career, kind of as a path that way, you're going to need to know HTML and kind of how all this technology works. Okay, so just a little bit kind of about the structure of HTML. So anytime you want to make an HTML file, it's typically you're gonna start with what's called an index.html file. That's the core of where all your HTML lives, and where all your other sites and pages will branch off from. We'll explain kind of what that is in a bit more, so you don't have to like memorize all this stuff now. But the core of HTML is it's built up of things that are called elements, as you can see on the screen. So an element consists of a few different important parts. So first, you're going to have your opening and closing tags. So these tags are basically going to tell you what the content is that the browser is going to have to display. So it could be text, it could be a title heading, a URL, an image, anything that you can think of. So in this example here, you'll have your opening and closing brackets on either side, and then the tag name in the middle. So the P tag is the paragraph tag. That's just going to be basic text. It's pretty much the standard that you're going to use all over your websites. And then the closing tag, again, same format. You're going to have a / in front of the closing tag. And that's just so the browser knows what content goes in that tag. And then in between each tag, you're going to have the content. So this tag would just simply display "my cat is grumpy" on your screen. It's pretty straightforward. We'll get into kind of other tags, what they'll look like, how they operate in the demo, but that's just kind of conceptually how HTML works and how elements are going to be laid out inside of your code. And I think now we're moving on to the demo.
Yeah, so we're going to be moving on to the demo, and anybody want to throw any sort of website my way? Just any single website. Somebody pick one.
Nike.com.
All right, we'll go to Nike.com. So we said that HTML is the like everything on the internet, and we can actually go in and see this. So if we right click and we click inspect element, we can actually see every single like tag that's used. Granted, Nike.com is a big corporation. They probably have a lot of this like auto-generated as HTML. But if we look into it carefully, and if I can even zoom in a little bit, why can't I zoom in on that? Oh, well, we can actually see like some tags and like, the content inside of them. So it is really the foundation of everything you see on the web. But with that being said, we should be good to actually go into the demo. And I said to like download an IDE before this meeting. It's not a big deal if you didn't, but if you want to follow along, you can. So I'm going to open up VS Code here. Also, I've never coded standing up before. We'll see how this goes. It's okay. So yeah, we'll create a new file and we'll actually call this index.html. And why it's called index.html is, I don't know who named it that, but that's how the internet kind of knows where the start or the root of your content lives.
It's the homepage.
It is. Create new, sure. And then we'll save it. Okay, why is this tricky? I should be able to create a file. Here we go. Maybe we'll just. Oh. Sweet. And one more thing is there is some boilerplate code for HTML. So all HTML we ever write and all websites are going to start with some boilerplate code. I don't want to say you don't need to know that, but it's not as important as some of the other stuff we'll get into. So for this point, we can just, go find some actual boilerplate code online and actually just use this. So did I skip?
Slides too.
It's in the slides. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the next slide.
The boilerplate.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll actually eat it from here. And I'll actually go over what all this does too, so we don't feel like we're missing anything.
Boilerplate is just like a template, essentially.
And yeah, so we'll go over everything. This doc type HTML is the version of HTML we're using. We have to put this in every single website just so that the internet kind of knows what version we're running. And it just does that, so it makes things a little bit easier. HTML, that's what we're learning. Everything we're going to be learning has to go inside of this. Then we have our header. That's kind of stuff that isn't necessarily useful for the people looking at the site, but it is useful for the site to kind of display things. And then this meta charts character set, UTF-8, what that does is that'll kind of shows the characters and like language of choice, and it just kind of supports a lot of different like actual text and things you can see. So like UTF-8 has things like emojis. So if you put an emoji into your HTML, that'll show up on the actual screen. And then title is my first page. I'll show you what that does in a little bit. And we can actually, to get started, we'll do the very first tag is, isn't this exciting? We can do a header tag. And that'll be an H1, and we'll say, this is a header. And then if we save it, and actually, we copy the path. So this will be the path where our file is located, and paste that into the internet. We can see this is our header. We can also see the title, which is up here, which might be hard to see, but this says my first page. That's what that title attribute was doing earlier. So yeah, we'll kind of keep going back and forth between these two. I'll keep adding a tag, and then we'll refresh the page and see what changes. So there's a bunch of header tags, and basically what those do is H2 to H6. Each one will be a little bit smaller. And if we refresh the page, we can see that, and we can even see what the smallest one is, which will be in H6. Why it's an H6 doesn't mean much to me, but it is, and that's the smallest header. Granted, that's probably too small. Also, can you guys all read the actual what you're seeing? Like especially in the back, can you guys read that okay? Or should I zoom in more? Okay, sweet. Then you, Vance, you open up like what I should try to do recreate. Oh, is it this one?
Right there, or yeah.
Okay, sweet. So we have the header tags, and now we can kind of, that's going to be like what describing some content. And then we also have paragraph tags. So these paragraphs are going to be more like, common actual text. So something like, this is some text. Excuse my creativity, not the most creative, but we can go ahead, actually see that. And yeah, so that's what a paragraph tag is. That'll probably be the most used tag out there. Everything you see mostly will exist, like the actual words will be in a paragraph tag. And then we can go on to the next one, which will be a line break. So oftentimes there is things we can do to move kind of some stuff along, because I guess this would be better shown if I have some more text. So we'll add some more text and then we'll show what this does. So we'll just copy and paste. This is some text, multiple places, and bam, we see it. And then we can also do something like add spacing. And like what these line breaks are doing is if we add another paragraph thing, more text, we can see that there's going to be more space in between, like above. And that's just kind of like a way of formatting, like maybe pressing enter on your Google Chrome. That's just kind of like what that does. And then we'll move on to comments. So you can leave comments by doing, I guess that's a less than sign, then a exclamation mark, and then 2 dashes, and then you can leave comments like that, like this. And then I will make a few notes about comments in HTML. There are certain places where you can't put comments. Like if we wanted to put it inside of this H2, we wouldn't be able to put it there, because that's just kind of like a thing you shouldn't do. It's a restricted area. That's not going to work out. Then we can move on to some more, I guess, advanced tags, because all of these are kind of like self-explanatory. A P is a paragraph, and you do that. So we'll move on to kind of how you can do lists. So there's 2 types of lists. There's unordered lists, which are going to be kind of bullet points, and you can do things like have, so this UL actually is kind of like the list, and then each LI is a list element. So like we can have first item, we can have another LI that's a second item, and then we can actually see what this does here. So that just kind of puts everything in a list. I'll also zoom in here and scroll down.
And also just note, all the LIs go between the 2 ULs, so it's kind of like nested inside.
We'll add one more, lucky number 3. And you can add as many as you want, and we'll actually incorporate these into the thing, I guess the project. I guess, so we have our recipes, and each recipe has ingredients. So we'll incorporate some of this stuff as ingredients. Another type of list you can have is an ordered list. And like Vance said, you want to put all of your list elements inside of there. So, first step is going to be here. And that's going to look, I'll just kind of order it for you, because, yeah. So we can do as many as we want, and it'll just kind of keep tracking for us, and it'll be all nice like that. The next tag we're going to move on to is an anchor tag. And so what that does is that'll actually link things. So we can use the link nike.com. We can go back to wherever that was, and we can actually link that into our page. I know if you guys all go to Wikipedia, you'll see tons of links to itself. And that is something that most web pages will end up having. So we can add an anchor tag, and inside of that we can have an href, and we can post a link there. And we can say like, click on me. And so I guess now if we refresh this page, we'll have a new element that says click on me, and it'll open up Nike. But sometimes we want to open a link in a new page, and we can do that as well too by adding, I believe it's target is equal to blank with an underscore. I could be mistaken, but yeah, We go on and that'll open it in a new page. And that's honestly what you guys will probably want. So if you ever use an A tag and you're not linking to your own website, so I know back in the cooking example, if you guys can remember that, we can like link to our homepage or an About Me page. Those aren't going to want to be taken away. But if you're linking to an external page or an external site like resources, you are going to want to add this target is equal to underscore blank, and that'll just open it in a new page. And then we can move on to images. And how to do an image is you need a source. So this source can be something on your computer, and you can have like that file path as a source, or it can be an internet that exists on the internet. So let's see, Baby Yoda. Everybody loves Baby Yoda. We can copy this. Oops. Copy this image. Copy link address, and we can put that in here. Oh, that's a long one. Oh well, that's fine. And we can actually, image is a tag that closes by itself. So in the past, we've seen things like /image. But image is a self-closing tag, so it doesn't do that. And there are a few self-closing tags, but in the case where it is, you just put it at the end of this and it'll work. So we can go back to our website, we can save, and we can refresh, and oh, it's not a good link. Well, so in this case, if it's not showing up, I'll get an image that shows up in a second. You can add an alt. And what this alt does is if the image doesn't show up or it's not loaded, you can say Baby Yoda image here. And that'll kind of explain to users what should be there, when it isn't. I don't know why it didn't. Maybe I just copied a bad image. This one. And we can paste that into the source. And then we can go back and see it change to an actual image. There we go. We have an image on our page. I guess I'll go back and add a line break before. And if we remember, that's going to be that BR closing tag. And so now the click on me and image will be kind of below each other. And some other things you can do with images are you can size them. So you can add like a width is equal to, like, say we want it to be 200 pixels. We can put it there and it'll resize. And then I'll kind of go on to one more topic, and that's going to be, I guess, placeholder tags, for lack of a better word. So div is a block tag, and a lot of stuff can go inside blocks. Like, for example, we can put our lists into this block. And what that does is just sometimes you do want an element that doesn't actually do anything, but that you can put stuff inside. And that'll make your code more organized. And so you can do that all in a div statement, and that'll be there. And one thing to note about a div is it is a block element. I don't know how to like very well describe the difference between a block element and an inline element, but think of it like
you know how the image and the link show up right next to each other? That's because they're both inline. So if they're blocked, like they're gonna show up on separate lines, but if they're inline, they're gonna show up like horizontally on the same line.
Yeah, and so I guess a div is the block element, and that is the one that will have a kind of a new line after it. And then there's a span, which you can add anything in there, like this is some more text, and this will actually keep everything in line. And sometimes you are going to want to keep stuff in line. You know, if you want something to the right of something else, then you can do it like that. And then I think we honestly should be good to kind of recap the demo. Those are all the main, most important tags we'll use. There's so many more, and those will all be kind of linked, and it's going to be impossible for us to like describe all of them in one bootcamp session. So just kind of we'll show you how you can access more and figure out more, and that's the best we can do for a bootcamp.
Google is your friend if you don't know how to display something.
Definitely. So going back to the presentation, we can go back to the demo recap. So yeah, everything we saw, you can create a file that ends with .html. The index.html is going to kind of want to be the root or where your website starts, but you can have other ones as well. Like, say if your page links to a different page on your website, you can call it something else. And then the boilerplate. You don't need to memorize all that. And honestly, every time you do create HTML, you're probably just going to look it up online because you're not going to remember all of it. If you want to type it out all by hand, go for it, but that won't save you some time. And then we can start by adding content between body tags. And I don't know if I actually mentioned this during the demo. I really should have, but you see how there's the head tags up there and the body tags? All of the actual content that's on your screen is going to be inside those body tags. And then to view your HTML, this is something I kind of went over really quickly. But so if we go back to our code, we can copy the path of our file. We don't have to do this in our IDE. We can go to like Finder and find wherever it's placed. But by posting that into the website or into the URL, you'll see that, and that'll work out nicely for you. Back to here. I'll do a quick recap of the tags. And in H1, H2, all the way to H6, H3, H4, H5, those are all header tags, and those are going to be kind of how you block out different parts of your page. The P is the paragraph tag, and that's going to be like actual words and content. There's A in the image. A is an anchor tag. IMG is an image tag. And those are kind of more self-contained or tags, I guess, and they have kind of more unique functionalities. And then we went over lists. So ULs, OLs. UL stands for unordered list, and OL stands for ordered list. Pretty easy to remember. And then you have to put those LIs or list elements inside of them. And then we went over line break. Wow, that was fast. Any questions about HTML or anything like that? We will have this video recorded. We will send you all the slides and even the what we actually coded during this demo. But you all will also get more experience during the projects working with a lot of these topics. But yeah, any questions about HTML? Awesome. Well, if you do have any questions, again, you can reach out, cut us off at any time, and we should be good to keep moving. I'll hide this, and then do you want to continue? Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Or can you, slides, let's just keep the slides on.
Is this good?
Yeah, cool. Okay, so now that we've gone over HTML, we're going to talk a bit about CSS, which is how you like style the website so it doesn't all look like what we just showed you, and it actually looks like a professional website. Next slide. Okay. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. We'll go a bit more into why it's called that later, but it's how you transform like an ugly, boring piece of HTML into something that you actually want to look at and that doesn't hurt your eyes. So CSS uses style properties in order to style different parts of your web page. So you can change things like color, font, size, and proportion of different things. So HTML and CSS are like two completely different file types, but they're all like you will write CSS whenever you write HTML. But the syntax is completely different. So the way CSS syntax works is you have a selector, which is that thing on the far left, it's the P. And we'll go over the different types of selectors during the demo. And then you have brackets, and then inside those brackets is where you put all the styles that you want to put. So you're gonna have a property, which is like, if you think there's a lot of HTML tags, there's even more CSS properties. But in this example, it's color, and then there's a value, which is kind of like, what are you setting that property to be? So CSS is really best learned through demo. So
Do you just want to use yours, or should I send
can-
you over? Because they're pretty similar.
yeah,
But...
or I can just use, I think I can use yours.
Oh, good luck.
I'm feeling adventurous.
Oh God, it's so sensitive. All right.
Okay, cool.
Take it away.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a new file, which I don't know how to do on this computer.
It's in the top left of the, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So we're going to just call this style dot. Maybe I shouldn't do this on your computer. Never mind. I'm going to change computers because I don't know how to use a Mac very well. Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Do you want me to?
I think you can just use yours. It'll, like, they're close enough.
Technical difficulties.
Oh, do I have to unshare?
Yeah, you have to. Do I have permission to
Yeah.
share screen? Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna zoom in a bit. So this is kind of some similar stuff to what we've already shown, and I'm gonna go over how we actually style that. So if we go back into VS Code or whatever IDE you're using, we're gonna create a new file, and we're gonna just call that, I don't know, typically the name is that it matches like the HTML. So if you're making homepage.html, you'll make homepage.css. But I don't think I do have an index.css, so I'm going to name it index.css. So in order to connect your CSS and your HTML, you're going to add a new tag into the head portion of your HTML. So back in your index.html, look at this top section where we had like the meta and the title, and you're going to type link rel equals index.css. Wait, never mind. That was my bad. Rel is style sheet. And then your href is going to be index.css. So save that. And then if we go back to our index.css, the first rule I'm just going to add is going to be exactly what we demoed. So we're going to add a selector, which is P. So we're going to select all the paragraph tags we added, and we're going to color those red, and then add a semicolon at the end of every line in CSS. So these are saved, this is connected. So now if I go to this page here and refresh, now all of my paragraphs are red. If you want to be more specific and style like a specific paragraph, we can go back into the HTML and we'll use a class, which, you know, similar to how like a link has an href, every single HTML element has this thing called a class that you can use to kind of select multiple CSS elements and kind of put them under a single style. So let's say that I want this text over here to have the class blue. And then if I go back to index.css and create a new class called blue. So in order to write a class in CSS, it's a period and then the name of the class. And then again, color blue. Save that, go back to the browser, refresh. And now the reason that this is called a cascading style sheet is that the most specific selector is the style that gets applied. So this is both a paragraph and it has the class blue, but since a class is more specific than a paragraph, the class takes priority. Does that kind of make sense? And then the cool thing about classes is that you can apply it. It's pretty easy to just apply to like another element. So if I want my heading to also be blue, I just use class equals blue. Save that and refresh it. And now the heading and this text are also blue. So classes are how you style multiple elements, and then you can also use like HTML classes to style every element of that type. And then the most specific selector is the ID tag. So if I have like an ID equal to, I don't know, important text. Also, you shouldn't have spaces, so use like dashes when you're making an ID. Then in order to create an ID in CSS, you use like the pound sign or hash symbol, important text, and then color. Maybe I can show RGB, which is, so there's like 3 different ways you can do coloring. You can just use like color names, you can use RGB, or you can also use hex, although that's like less intuitive. Question?
Yeah, what's the difference between an ID and a class?
Yeah, great question. So class you can apply to multiple elements, ID only goes to one. So if I were to make like if I were to make this also ID equals important text, that would be wrong. But classes you can apply to as many as you want. So typically the safe bet is go for class unless there's like a reason you want that specific thing to only apply to that. And then I don't know my RGB, so I'm just gonna use this cool thing. This is why I love VS Code, is you can use this dragging tool to just select a color. And for some reason it got like nested inside of itself. But yeah, that's how you would do like RGB coloring. So now if I go here, then this is like the most highest priority. So that takes the blue color. And then coloring is not the only thing you can do in CSS. So you can also change like font size. So if I want this to be really big, I can be like, okay, maybe not that big. I can make that 100 pixels. Pixels, if you haven't caught on, is like the general like unit that you use for styling. You can also use percentages. We'll go over that later, but pixels are like, if you're not sure what the units are, assume it's pixels. So now that's much bigger. And then what are some other great things to style with? I might just steal some ideas from this CSS over here. I'm just gonna steal all of this actually, and I'll just go over what each of these do. This is more advanced, but you can also change the background color, and you can use stuff like gradients. I wouldn't recommend like memorizing this. If you just Google like CSS gradient, you can figure out how to make a gradient, and it'll make the background like gradient. So gradient's just like between 2 colors. So you pick like the left color and the right color, and it'll kind of transition smoothly between it. So use those like sparingly, because too much can look kind of ugly, but it looks really nice if you use it a little bit. And then you can also change the font weight. So this is how you make stuff like bold or bolder or lighter. So if I were to make this bold, now your text is bolded. And then text align will just kind of center the text. If I get rid of, let me get rid of that rule because I don't want to touch that. But see now that there's like space on the left, space on the right, and then the text is centered within that box. And that's some basics for CSS. Any questions on any specific styles?
There's so many out there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
We really can't show all the HTML tags or all the CSS like things you can do. I know if like when Vance was showing us VS Code, you'd see all the options, and there was so many. There's things like gradients. There's things you can like underline. Those are not like exciting examples. What's an exciting example? You can have like things repeat. There's just a lot you can do with it.
Yeah.
I know going back and thinking like about our project that we're talking about. All that was done with only HTML, CSS. And those two are just kind of like the bare bones of stuff you'll actually use when building web apps. And so those two things can combine and create something pretty cool.
I think we can go back to you can go back on your computer now.
Sure.
Okay. So we have pretty much reached the end of content. Now we're just going to go over what the project's all about, I think.
Yeah.
But any questions on CSS? Cool.
Demo recap. All right. Vince.
Oh, yeah.
Keep talking about the
Yeah. So just to recap everything we covered with CSS, I know it's a lot. Of course, your file name has to end with .css. That's how your computer knows it's a CSS file. To link your CSS to your HTML, you include that link tag inside the head of your HTML. So not within the body. And that's all you need to do in order to kind of connect the two. And then selectors, I think I covered most of that. If you want to apply like CSS to multiple selectors, you just put a comma between it. So if I wanted to apply to like P and H1, it would be P, comma, H1, and then the brackets. And then we also didn't get a chance to cover pseudo classes, but if you Google that, that's how you style like text. So it only styles when you hover over it or stuff like that. So that's very useful. I would highly recommend learning it. Yeah, and then here's like some of the most frequent CSS styles that you use, but they're certainly not the only ones.
Sweet. Now we can move back to the milestone. And what each milestone is going to be, milestone is going to refer to the project. And I'll actually briefly demo the first milestone and how you guys are all going to build all this as well. So here, we're going to all build our own site. We're going to have a few things that everybody needs to have. And Ben will show you the requirements as well. But this is just kind of going to be a brief overview of what we look like. And we can actually see some of the stuff we just went over in the demos. And we can apply them here. Like here, these things, these are all the anchor tags. So you click on one and it'll move somewhere else. And then there's like all these things, like this is obviously a header, this is text, like the blue and greens, all that's CSS, images, borders, there's just a lot you can do. And so we're just gonna show kind of what each thing you need during the first milestone of the project is, and then we'll go over the due dates and where you can find these resources. So in our first one, we're just gonna keep it pretty simple. You're only gonna use HTML and CSS, and you're gonna create something similar to this. And what similar to this means is going to be a website that displays some recipes. Granted, we're not all here cooks. If you are creative and want to do something else, just run that by us and we'll probably approve it. But we want this to all be something that you take kind of seriously. The more you put into it, the more you'll get out. And yeah, so you're going to have your home page, you're going to have your About Me page, and on the home page, you're going to have at least a list of 3 recipes or more if you want. And then each recipe you can click on, and it'll be kind of a unique page that has another list with ingredients and ordered list for like the steps and / instructions. And I know those demos didn't look that impressive or exciting at the time, but here you can kind of see how they're used to make something that looks a little bit better. And yeah, so that's kind of going to be what you're going to try to build during your first milestone. And then we can go back and we'll let Ben talk about some resources and like how you figure out some of this like requirements, I guess.
All right, so first I'm gonna give y'all like about 15 seconds. Go ahead and scan this QR code on your phones. If you don't have your phone with you, or it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll send the link out in the Slack later.
Is Notion familiar to any of you?
Yeah,
like, are you guys signed up for this? Is this something that was sent out like during the emails?
Has anyone used Notion before? Okay, so some of you, not everyone. All right, so yeah, a lot of our club's resources are going to live on Notion. So I'll kind of go through that with you right now, kind of explain the structure, what it looks like. So that link I sent out to you is going to take you to our chapter's homepage on Notion. So there's going to be a lot of different information on here. Let's see. So just kind of stuff about the chapter, things about our members. We've got past projects, our social media, things like that. But the most important thing that I'd like to direct your attention to is the bootcamp resources that we have here. So y'all are developers, so you go ahead and click on the developer bootcamp resources. And here's just going to kind of be a rundown of some of the stuff we talked about today, give kind of an overview of what we're doing in bootcamp, kind of what you can expect from it. And we'll be updating this kind of as we move further along in bootcamp.
Bookmark this page, you'll use it throughout the quarter.
Yeah, so make sure you have this bookmarked, and again, we will send it out in Slack so y'all have it on your desktop later. But so first thing we have kind of up here is we have the timeline of our milestones. So as Cole and Vance mentioned, you'll be kind of turning in kind of checkpoints of your website as you build it incrementally to us. And this gives kind of a general outline of when those milestones are going to be due, what we'll cover, and we'll talk more about each topic as we get through each week. But if you want to view kind of the requirements for each milestone, you go ahead and open the page here. So we're currently on milestone 1 is what we were talking about today. And we'll kind of give an overview of what you learned during the week, what you'll be using. This is the example that Cole showed you. So y'all can view this on your own time and look at it. And then kind of a little bit about the requirements. So here it kind of goes over the HTML requirements you have. So you'll have to use certain tags correctly that we talked about, lay out your files correctly, kind of organize your files in the right way, and then kind of complete those objectives that Cole was outlining, have different recipes, lists, things like that. And then same with the CSS, kind of just styling it, make it look a little pretty. It doesn't have to look perfect, but just kind of however you want to style it, you can choose what you want to do for that. And then we've got a couple resources here, just some example code, a little bit of suggestions on stuff that you can look more into on your own. But in addition to that, we have a lot of other resources on the Notion as well. So if you go back to the main page, we've got the materials for each workshop laid out session by session. So today is the HTML and CSS. You'll be able to access those slides here, kind of go back and look at what we went over today. And then we'll post the video recording shortly after the meeting. And then finally, the last thing, kind of this section, just overview on how you can get help if you need it. Because a lot of this stuff that you're going to be working on, it's going to be on your own time or kind of after the workshop meeting during office hours. So we want to make sure that you all can reach out to us or find resources that you need on your own time. So you don't really feel stuck, like you have to wait for the next bootcamp session. So we have our office hours lined up here, times that we're available to meet, Discord and Slack channels that you can use to ask for help, suggestions for places to look on the internet, and then we've compiled a folder of resources for each topic that we cover. So today we covered HTML. If we go in here, we've got some links to additional resources. If you need a more kind of incremental walkthrough of a certain topic, you can go through it kind of online. And we have some tips as well for when you're developing on a certain topic and kind of how to get through breakthroughs that we found ourselves stuck in when we were going through bootcamp as well. So we have a lot of resources, and we want you all to know that, you know, we're here to teach you this kind of stuff. So if you do have questions, please, as they said, just reach out to us and we're happy to help you. If we don't have the resources, we can help you find them as well. So, and I think that's it.
Yeah, so before everybody leaves, we'll have a few more things. We want everybody to be able to access the Notion page beforehand. That's very important. You'll be spending a lot of time there throughout this upcoming quarter. So make sure you kind of know how to access the Notion page before you leave here today. We'll also, I guess one thing that I didn't quite cover is in the actual requirements, how we're going to submit this. And some of you probably are familiar with Git at this point, others might not. That's actually going to be our topic for our next bootcamp session that's going to be held on Monday. So all of the requirements you guys should be able to already have the facilities to do, I guess, the capability to, and like through the resources on the Notion page, you'll figure out kind of how you need to do that. But turning it in, we'll actually kind of go over that next time. So don't worry too much about that. And you also don't have to have it done by then as well. If we go back to the bootcamp schedule, we can see that this is going to be due October 22nd. And all of these do have due dates, but we say they're strict, but they're also not strict. Like, we're not going to be one of those teachers who cracks down on you. Like, you're not going to be kicked out of the club if you don't do it. Don't get it completed by the due date. But it is important to stay on topic because these topics we teach will get incrementally harder. For those of you who already know HTML and CSS, this might have felt like a breeze or like, what am I learning? But it will ramp up as we go. So you kind of have to stay on top of things. And yeah, I think that should be it. We'll be here till 8 to ask questions. Not till 8, just until everybody's gone. But does anybody have any questions right now about anything?
The 22nd is next Friday, by the way. So you have like a week and a day.
Wow, we must be really good teachers.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. If you have any questions, you can also come up to us after.
but yeah, so next bootcamp session will be Monday, same room. We'll be covering Git. It's super nice to see all of you. I know I haven't like met all of you yet, but I do want to meet all of you at some point. I know once I like see your code, like then I'll kind of get an idea. Like I see your like about you page and stuff. I'll kind of know all your names, so that'll be good. But yeah, I guess you guys are all free to go if you choose, or free to stick around if you choose. Thank you guys all for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll end the recording.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Could I make mine on video?